The last sound was the hollow, final click of my own front door locking from the outside. Then, silence. A thick, feverish silence in my empty apartment. The kind that presses on your eardrums. Vincent was at his mother's, again. I had the flu, a bone-deep, shivering agony, and when I'd whispered for ginger ale, his sigh had traveled down the phone line, colder than any fever chill. "You're a grown woman, Ariel. Can't you just order in?" The memory shattered, replaced by an older, more polished cruelty, Helen's voice, honey and hydrochloric acid, the first time we met. "And what do your parents do, dear?" And later, the killer blow I'd overheard, delivered to Vincent like a diagnosis, a sweet little thing. But not durable. Not for our world. She'll always have the faint, sad scent of a visitor. I died lonely. I died begging for scraps from a man soothed by his mother's whispers. I gasped awake. Not in my sterile apartment, but in my old sunlit studio. The familiar crack in the ceiling plaster, a map of a tiny earthquake, stared back. My heart tried to batter its way out of my chest. On the nightstand, my phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. "Can't wait for you to meet Mom tonight. Don't be nervous. She'll love you." The date on the screen screamed the impossible. I was back. 1 year before the wedding. 1 year before the meticulous, elegant annihilation of Ariel. For a full hour, I sat paralyzed, tears of sheer, disbelieving relief hot on my cheeks. The grief was a fresh, gutting wound. But beneath it, something new crystallized, a fury so cold and clear it felt like sanity. I wouldn't try to win her over. Winning implied a fair fight on her terrain. I knew her playbook by heart, the gentle corrections, the pitying glances at my thrift store charm, the way she'd evaporate any story I told about my art. No. The realization clicked into place with terrifying serenity. I wouldn't fight her. I would become her. Not to win her son, but to become the mirror she could never look away from, a reflection so perfect, it would trap her own reflection. I spent the afternoon in a state of hyper-focused calm. I remembered everything. Helen's passions were a curated arsenal, the orchids she nurtured with clinical precision, the 19th century novels she used as social shibboleths, the obscenely expensive jasmine tea she believed purified the soul of the unworthy. In my first life, I'd worn a simple blue dress to that dinner. Serviceable, she'd called it. This time, I chose a vibrant, coral pink dress with a subtle, strategic cutout at the shoulder. A deliberate, charming flaw. A hook. The drive to her Georgian-style manor was a surreal reverse funeral march. My palms were dry, my grip steady. I was an actress walking onto a stage where I knew every line, every tremor of the script. Vincent met me at the door, his smile handsome and empty. "You look great." He always said that. It never meant he saw. "I hope it's not too much," I murmured, injecting a flicker of doubt. "I wanted to honor your mother." "She'll think you're beautiful," he said. I almost smiled. He was a passenger in his own life. Then, there she was. Helen. Framed in her doorway like a museum piece. Silver blonde hair, cashmere armor, a smile that never touched her glacier blue eyes. "Ariel," she said, leaning in for the spectral cheek kiss. This time, I moved first. I enveloped her in a warm, genuine feeling hug, catching the exclusive, oppressive scent of her perfume. "Helen." I gushed, holding her shoulders. "Vincent's photos are a crime. You have such presence." I felt her minutes stiffen. The script, on page 1, was already altered. Dinner was my opening aria. I let Vincent drone about mergers, my gaze instead fixed on Helen with rapt attention. When she gestured to a minor impressionist painting, a previous trap to highlight my ignorance, I was ready. I set my fork down with a soft click. "Oh, it's not dull," I said, my voice hushed with reverence. "It's devastating. It has the same tragic stillness as that moment in Middlemarch when Dorothea sees the full, quiet architecture of the cage she's built for herself." The silence was absolute. Vincent looked politely lost. Helen's spoon stilled above her porcelain bowl. Middlemarch. Her sacred text. Her benchmark for a worthy mind. "You've read George Eliot?" she asked, her voice meticulously neutral. "Isn't she the patron saint of intelligent women in gilded cages?" I replied, layering my tone with intimate warmth. I let my gaze flicker, just for a heartbreaking second, to Vincent, cheerfully eating his salmon, then back to Helen. The message in that glance was a slender, venomous thread: "You and I see the world. He just lives in it." I saw it land. A fracture in the ice. A spark of predatory interest. Later, on the patio with her sacred jasmine tea, I admired her orchid collection. My eyes settled on one phalaenopsis, its leaves subtly dejected. I remembered her secret frustration with this very plant. This one is breathtaking, I sighed. Though the medium seems a touch dense, doesn't it? I had the same issue. A repot with extra charcoal for aeration saved mine. Another, heavier silence. This wasn't book learning. This was her private failure. I'd offered a key to the lock. My gardener suggested that just this morning, she said slowly. The look she gave me was no longer appraisal. It was the first stirrings of recognition. The night ended not with her dismissive nod, but with her taking my hand at the door. Her grip was firm, possessive. Vincent beamed, believing in his simple, happy ending. "Come for tea Tuesday, Ariel," Helen said, her voice now warm. "Just us. I have a first edition of The Age of Innocence I think you'd understand." It was a test. An invitation into the inner sanctum. "I'd adore that," I said, mirroring her smile perfectly. In the car, Vincent was euphoric. "See? I told you. You two were like old friends." I watched the streetlights streak the window like fallen stars. "Yes," I whispered to the night. "Like old friends." The hollow in my chest wasn't grief. It was the vast, quiet echo of the stage I now owned. I had my invitation. The real performance had just begun. I hadn't dodged a trap. I had volunteered to become the architect of a new one. Tea with Helen became a Tuesday sacrament. The first edition was a prop. The real text we studied was Vincent, our charming, hapless specimen. My strategy was elegantly simple: become Helen's most perfect echo and her most devoted audience. I didn't just agree, I anticipated. When she lamented the decline of the club service, I'd already have a scandalous tidbit about the new sommelier, heard from a contact at the Arts Council. I fed her the purest currency, gossip that made her feel omniscient. Vincent basked in the reflected glow. "You two are thicker than thieves," he'd say, kissing my head before leaving us to our fortified world. He didn't see the power silently shifting from his hands to ours. A memory, sharp as glass, cut through the jasmine haze, Helen helping me shop for a mother-of-the-groom dress in my first life. Her touch on a cobalt sleeve. "Oh, sweetheart. That satin is so unforgiving across the hips. We want elegance, not emphasis." Later, as I stood meek in a beige sheath, "People will talk if you wear something so forgettable." I'd cried. Vincent had sighed. "Just listen to her, Ari. She's trying to help you fit in." Now, I weaponized that memory. One Tuesday, amidst her orchids, I let my gaze grow distant, sighing a perfectly crafted sigh. "A penny for your thoughts, dear?" Helen asked, her concern newly proprietary. "It's Vincent," I said, offering a brave, fragile smile. "He's so wonderfully trusting. It terrifies me sometimes. The world is full of people who'd see his kindness, his position, as a target." I looked at her, letting old, genuine fear shine through. "How did you learn to tell the difference?" It was the perfect question. It anointed her the oracle, the protector. She set her cup down with a soft, decisive click. "My dear girl," she said, patting my hand. "It's in the details. The way she speaks of her family. The way she observes." She launched into a tale, and I listened as if to gospel. We were now allies, defending Vincent from the world. The irony was a bitter, delicious pill. Our first test arrived with Chloe, the brilliant lawyer from Vincent's past. At a gallery opening, Helen and I observed from our flank. "She's very direct," Helen murmured, eyeing Chloe's practical shoes. "Ambitious," I added, the word a drop of poison. "You can see it in her posture. Like she's already reading the terms and conditions." Later, Helen struck with velvet malice. "Your work sounds so demanding, Chloe. How do you nurture a personal life? A relationship needs such constant care." Chloe's smile tightened. "It's about balance, Mrs. Thorne. Mutual respect." I floated in, a flutter of supportive concern. "It's so impressive. Though, Vince," I turned to him, eyes wide, "remember your father? He always said a home needs a heart, not a spreadsheet." My laugh was a light, tinkling bell. "Not that Chloe couldn't be both. I'm sure she's terribly efficient." The word fell like ice. The conversation died. Chloe left rigid, Vincent confused. "No softness," Helen concluded, swirling her cognac. A man like Vincent needs a sanctuary, not a competitor. I nodded, adding the final, corny nail. I just picture him coming home tired, and her wanting to debate antitrust law instead of rub his neck. Does that make me terribly archaic? It makes you correct, Helen said, and the satisfaction in her voice was my symphony. Vincent began to feel the exclusion. He suggested a weekend away. I scrolled through my phone, synced with Helen's. Oh, darling, that's the gala planning weekend. Helen is chair, I'm vice chair. We're utterly indispensable. The flash of hurt in his eyes was a familiar, aching ghost. Now you know, I thought. Now you know what it feels like to be scheduled out of existence. The ultimate symbol arrived, a bracelet. A twisted strand of gold and pearl, grotesquely expensive. For my partner in crime, Helen said, eyes misty. I wore it like a brand. When Vincent bought me a different one, I held my wrist up, pearls gleaming. But how could I ever take this off? It's from Helen. He returned his gift, defeated. We named ourselves the Bougie Brigade as a joke, but the wall was real. When he proposed, a spectacle I knew she'd orchestrated, I said yes with tears that were real, but not for him. They were for the sheer, staggering scale of the performance. The ring was a shackle I'd helped design. Wedding planning was our masterpiece. Vincent's opinions on flowers, music, cake, were met with a synchronized, gentle veto. You don't understand the aesthetics, darling, Helen would say. I would just nod, linking my arm with hers. He began to retreat, a quiet storm brewing behind his eyes. The chapter ended at my final dress fitting. Swathed in ivory silk in her private suite, I was the perfect phantom bride. Helen watched, a hand over her heart, real tears, the first I'd ever seen, tracking through her powder. You look, she whispered, voice cracking, like the daughter I always dreamed of. The words were the final, exquisite twist of the knife I held. In the mirror, I saw the ghost of the girl in the serviceable blue dress. A hollow, cold ache opened inside me. I had it all, her love, her approval, her son. And it tasted of nothing. As she left for champagne, I heard Vincent's voice in the hall, tight with a frustration once reserved only for me. He was on the phone. It's like I'm not even marrying Ariel anymore. It's like I'm marrying a clone of my mother. I can't breathe. The hollow ache vanished, replaced by a glacial, flawless certainty. I adjusted a pearl sleeve, my smile in the mirror turning real, sharp, and utterly victorious. Perfect. Married life was a museum of Helen's tastes. Our home was a beautiful, silent hotel in beige and regret. Vincent moved through it like a guest, afraid to leave a mark. The brigade's schedule was law. He'd suggest a movie, I'd be shrugging on a tailored blazer. The Historical Society fundraiser, my love. It's Helen's night. We have to be there. The we never included him. The final, quiet violence was his study. While he golfed, I had his messy, personal space, the sports memorabilia, the cluttered desk, erased. In its place, a taupe sanctuary, a waterfall desk, shelves of leather-bound classics we had chosen. His things were boxed and banished to a laundry room alcove. I was placing eucalyptus in a vase when he found it. Golf bag on his shoulder, face cycling from confusion to cold, clean anger. What is this? Voice flat, dangerous. Your new study. I chirped, feigning delight. Helen and I thought you needed serenity. Look at the light. Where are my things? The old me would have crumbled. The new me placed a hand on my chest, eyes wide with performed pain. They're safe. We streamlined. Helen said clutter causes subconscious anxiety. He threw his bag down. I don't give a damn what my mother said. This is my house. You are my wife. The crack was now a chasm. I dropped the act, my voice hardening. Your wife? What does that mean, Vincent? You told me to listen to her. She knows this world, Ariel. She can help you fit in. So I did. I changed everything. I gave up my art, my friends, my taste, to become the perfect, durable wife for you. I built this sanctuary with her because that's what you said you wanted. I was hurling his own first life words like knives. He blanched, hollowed out. He had no defense. The truth, from this angle, was monstrous. That's not? I didn't mean. Then what did you mean? I whispered, letting the ghost of my lonely death haunt my words. You just handed me her rulebook and got angry when I memorized it. He fled. To her, of course. My phone buzzed an hour later. Helen. Darling, don't fret. Vincent is here. He's being emotional. Men don't understand the work of a proper home. We'll soothe him. The masterpiece was complete. The unraveling was swift. Vincent moved into her guest house, his old childhood room. The irony was perfect. I was the gracious, wronged wife. Helen the devoted mother. But with our shared project, Vincent, gone, our bond frayed. Silences grew. I began to decline Tuesdays. I saw panic in her eyes. Her mirror was walking away. It was time for my final, independent move. Using a sliver of insider knowledge Helen had once dropped, I made a sharp, small investment. Not for wealth, but for a weapon, autonomy. When the buyout came, I used the return as a down payment on a north-facing loft in the Arts District. Exposed brick, scarred floors, endless light. I signed the papers alone. The pen felt like a feather. Helen came to see my little project. She stood in the raw space, a statue of horror in designer heels. But, it's so unfinished. The neighborhood. It's perfect, I said, cutting her off for the first time. My voice was calm, final. The light is perfect. I saw the understanding dawn in her eyes, cold and devastating. She was losing control of the narrative. My final act was a quiet poison. I wrote a letter, not a confession, but a piece of tragic fiction in a vintage journal. I described the erosion of my first life in heartbreaking, intimate detail. The loneliness. The insults. The crushing decision to survive by becoming the very thing that was killing me. I ended it. I became her shadow to escape the basement. Now I live in the dark behind her, and it is colder than I ever imagined. I accidentally left it tucked in a somber poetry book she'd lent me. A week later, the grapevine whispered, Helen had cancelled all engagements. Fatigue. Vincent came to my loft, gaunt and lost. What did you do to her? Not accusation, but exhaustion. I loved her, Vincent, I said, and it was the profound truth. Exactly the way she demanded to be loved. And then I outgrew the role. He left, shoulders slumped, to return to her gilded cage. They were now both prisoners, acutely aware of the bars. In my new studio, the afternoon light was liquid gold. A vast, blank canvas stood waiting. A box of my old paints, vibrant, chaotic, alive, sat open. The quiet was no longer hollow. It was pregnant with possibility. I picked up a brush. I bypassed every safe, neutral color. I dipped it into a reckless, screaming cobalt blue, the color of my serviceable dress, the color of a forgotten sky, the color of a truth too bold to be hidden. The first stroke across the pristine white was a shock. A violation. A jubilant declaration. I painted without a plan. I painted the loneliness, the performance, the exquisite, hollow victory. I painted until my arm ached and the world outside darkened. When I finally stepped back, breathless and splattered, I wasn't thinking of Vincent, or Helen, or revenge. I was only thinking of the next color. The freedom wasn't a concept anymore. It was here, in the quiet, in the mess, in the glorious, uncompromising stain of the paint. I was finally, irrevocably, home.